So today we got our show with Living Healthy with Dr. Gary, and I got my friend Tim joining us. And Tim's been in the TV business and the broadcasting business for over 30 years, and sports and producing commercials and working in TV. And he's going to just tell us a little bit about his story and where he came from and the challenges he had, and some things how we helped him out and how he is today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Tim. And
Sure. Well, first, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me on your show to tell my story. So just short, I worked in television with CNN and NBC for years. Also have been independent for a number of years, producing television and commercials. Worked in news primarily at CNN, and then worked in sports at TBS. Did a lot of basketball, a lot of Braves, a lot of all that stuff. And from there went on to NBC and worked in the news division for about 10 years. And ended up building a company called NewsProNet. We were creating investigative news stories that were syndicated to stations all across the country, which went really well. We were in about 80% of the markets across the country at our peak. I ended up selling the company to NBC and a company in Miami who added a Latino aspect news to it. And about that time, I stepped out of it. I was done with news at that point and went on to be independent, which I did for a number of years. But most of my life, I've had an addiction to opiates. And I functioned until I couldn't. And I guess this would be, let me see, it's been 4 years. So I guess about 14 years ago, having been on that on and off again treadmill of addiction with opiates, mostly pain medication, OxyContin, that sort of thing, I found Suboxone. And it was right near the beginning when Suboxone was coming out. I used to have the little pills, little orange pills, and before they went to the film. Well, got over on that, and that was a blessing at first. It certainly allowed me to live functionally and to produce and be creative for a period of time, so that I wasn't always constantly doctor shopping and seeking opiates, which was my thing. Fortunately, a part of my story is that eventually I got into script writing and got into a lot of trouble with forging scripts, and got busted for that, and just had a lot of trouble with that. That is all gratefully and thankfully way behind me now. Yeah. So really my story and what brings me here is the Suboxone addiction. And I believe Suboxone is just another addiction. When I found you, and I'll get into that story in a little bit, but I got on Suboxone, and my understanding was this, you'd be on for a little bit and it would help you get off of opiates and everything would be great. Well, what I had done was just traded one addiction for another, basically with Suboxone. And if you're out there and you're considering Suboxone and it's the only thing around, by all means, it's much better than street drugs or doctor shopping and all that. But it was much harder to get off of Suboxone than it was to get off of opiates. So I ended up spending 10 years, as you know, on Suboxone, and was at the end of my rope. Because what I was noticing is, and we've talked about this a lot, when we mess with our neurotransmitters, we're messing with everything, the balance in our body, our emotional balance, our physical balance. And I was noticing a decline, cognitive decline, creative decline. I wasn't thinking as clearly. I had that brain fog that I attributed to Suboxone. And it was getting worse, along with my memory was getting worse. And it finally occurred to me that, Suboxone is causing this. Because the longer I take it, the less natural neurotransmitters I'm creating in my brain on my own, which is creating diminished capacity. And I was getting very, very concerned about that. It was really noticeable, the decline. So I I searched and searched and searched for a unique solution that I had never found, that I didn't know about, and that's, of course, what led me to you. And of course, I went through the 14-day therapy, and to say it changed my life is an understatement. Of course, it was the first therapy that I'd ever encountered that actually took away the cravings from day one. And that was amazing. I remember going in the first 2, maybe 3 days, it was fine. And you guys kept looking at me going, "You sure you're okay? You're okay?" And then I think it was the third day, I had a bit of a crash. There was, one uncomfortable day. And you guys are like, "Yeah, now we know it's working." But that was it. I mean, after that, it was just a gentle rise back. And by the end of that first week, I was feeling better than I'd frankly ever felt. My brain was already clear. And then, of course, at the end of the whole, all the sessions, I was just completely new. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I remember how you talked about, it's amazing how your body holds on to things before you start to detox. And then it was a breakaway. And you had that period of going through that detox. And then you started feeling better in your skin. I can remember when you said how your creativity was coming back and wanted your computer. And I remember watching you take your computer, you were writing away and writing scripts and everything. I said, this is amazing that you were feeling so good, because I remember when you first came in how you said you felt like you'd lost your creativity and didn't have the desire to even create, and just to watch that change take place with you was a fantastic thing.
Yeah, it was amazing to just get that back, that ability back, and to feel like, the fog, which was particularly thick in my case, or felt like that, when that started to dissipate, it feels like you could see again and you could think again. And the thinking was faster. And just the solutions, the creative solutions to whatever story I was trying to tell was coming much quicker. And I thought I'd lost all that. I thought I've ruined it. I've ruined my brain. Of course, we know now from neuroplasticity that the brain is very healable with the right therapy, with the right combination of help at the right time, which is what you've created, that allows our brains to heal much faster than normal. I mean, just coming off of opiates, our brain will heal itself, but it needs more than that. Right. It needs the nutrients. It needs the balance to become fully alive. It's like tuning up the engine. Right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And once that engine is tuned up, you realize how out of tune it had been for so long. So, I mean, I can't thank you enough, buddy. I really can't.
You're so welcome. You use that like an engine. I think about that. It's like if you started noticing an engine, the timing was off a little bit and didn't notice it. And then when it is functioning correctly, or all cylinders are firing correctly, how much you notice, wow, it's working so much better. And did you find that it was little by little over time, being on the Suboxone, that you were the brain fog came, and then it was just you were there of having so much brain fog that you started losing that creativity and that ability to want to do the things that you had been very good at doing? Yeah,
I mean, after 5 years of using Suboxone, and I wasn't using a huge amount of it either. I mean, a lot of Suboxone doctors are maxing out, the doses, which is crazy, just absolutely nuts. So it wasn't a high dose, but after 4 or 5 years, I just started noticing I seem more foggy. I can't seem to think as fast as I could. I can't recall as well as I could. And it would be particularly bad when I needed to solve an issue, that required both halves of my brain to kind of figure it out. And I was becoming very alarmed that man, this machine is not working
Right.
as well as it used to. And it took a while to kind of connect the dots that it's because of the Suboxone. And around that time, I started doing a lot of research into how opiates and Suboxone affect our neurotransmitters,
Right.
and the damage it does in terms of depleting the neurotransmitters. And they're down to nearly nothing. And how those neurotransmitters are, they regulate all of our systems in our body, from mood to appetite. And I started to wonder, why am I always mildly depressed? Why do I have no motivation anymore? Why does love feel like a foreign concept? I felt like I was a shell of who I used to be. I felt like I was losing me. And that was really scary. I was just in my 50s. And it's way too early for this sort of stuff to happen. But, when I went through the therapy, when it started the NAD injections, that turned around very quickly, right? It's like the NAD went in and it first cleaned out the opiates, just stripped them away, cleaned it out, and immediately replaced and filled those receptor sites that take away the cravings, instantly. And that was one of the amazing things, is this is not a process that takes a month to happen. This happens pretty immediately. Over a couple of days, we've reset those neurotransmitters. Now we're just healing the brain with the rest of it. And as we were healing the brain, things got clearer, right? It's back to the engine. When the engine is running correctly, it does what it's supposed to do. It's producing maximum horsepower.
That's right.
So my motivation came back. My ability to solve problems came back. I was able to create new things. And it was just amazing.
How about you? You mentioned how anxiety and depression had been there.
Yep.
Had that started becoming more of an issue by being on the Suboxone during the time that you were taking it? You noticed that, and then what happened going through the program?
Sure. Yeah, I mean that was absolutely part of it. I've had depression most of my life, although when I look back, it seems like it kind of started when I started using drugs in my teen years and continued through wherever my drug use was. So those went hand in hand. And lack of motivation, as well. And those things came back very quickly. I noticed the depression when the fog lifted, the depression kind of went away. It's like taking, gauze off of your eyeballs. I could see, let the scales fall from my eyes and I could see. So that was significant. And I think, because NAD it's a complete treatment of the brain, right? You're not just treating a symptom. You're treating the whole brain. And I think that's one of the major differences is, one of the benefits is, we get to be clean. We get to be happy. So it's not that you're targeting a specific thing. In my case, not that you're targeting a specific symptom. It was brain tune-up. It was brain repair, which I've always referred to NAD as brain repair. So the benefits are you get all that.
Right, exactly.
So rather than taking antidepressant, which I don't take any antidepressants anymore or anything, so rather than taking antidepressant just to address that specific issue, we took care of all that.
Right.
And and I've been good ever since. And what that was 4 years ago, I think now. So it's amazing.
So in 4 years, you haven't had a need to have to take anything else or been on any kind of drugs or medication from that point on?
No.
That's great. I say, we treat people, not the symptoms. It's people who have different conditions. And so you mentioned anxiety. What about that? Did the anxiety leave too?
Yeah.
Or any issues with that?
Yeah. That did. Anxiety was an issue for me. Beyond just the worry of getting drugs. Where am I going to get my next drugs? I mean, with Suboxone, I didn't have to worry about where I was going to get it. All I had to do was bring a pile of money to a willing doctor who'd more than happy to write a script, for the Suboxone. See you later. See you next month. Make sure to bring your money. But when I was on Suboxone, I still had anxiety. I was really worried about the decline, the mental and cognitive decline that I was experiencing. So anxiety came with that. NAD addressed that as well. And it just goes back. When you treat the whole brain, you will treat all the issues with it. Right. And in my case, all of that was very treatable with NAD. So... Okay.
Using that analogy like with the engine is, so since we're treating the person and not the symptom and dealing with the whole body, mind, body, and spirit, we're just doing a tune-up over the whole body. Like you say, when you deal with this organ that's affecting the whole body, it affects every aspect of our body. So it's a great thing to see that. Now, how did you start out initially with the opiates? You mentioned pain.
Yep.
What happened there where you were experiencing some pain?
It really first started when I was in high school. I had a part-time job cleaning up my dentist office. And they used to keep a large bottle of Darvocet readily available. And my sister one time says, "Hey, take a couple of those. You're going to feel great. And get a couple for me, too." My sister was my using partner. It was great. So that started. And just throughout the years, I'd have occasion to find some or have some dental work or something. I've had some surgeries in my life. But when it really started, when it really got bad, is I had pneumonia, actually double pneumonia one time. And I was given this really strong cough medicine called Tussinex, which is like liquid heroin, basically. And I just fell in love with that stuff. And after, using it all and talking the doctor into another refill, I became deeply addicted to this stuff. And if I couldn't find that, I'd get OxyContin or other things. But I really loved that drug. And opiate addicts out there all probably know, this stuff. And so I continued to use that through the years and eventually started writing prescriptions for it. And that's what got me in trouble, and that's eventually what got me into Suboxone and what brought me to you. But that was my addiction. I was a daily user. If I stopped using, I had severe withdrawal. I was taking a lot of it and consuming a lot of the other chemicals that come with Tussinex, which couldn't be good for me. And did that. I guess I was in that addictive cycle for about 10 years before I found Suboxone. So, yeah.
Yeah. So how long has it been since you've been off the Suboxone? It's been, 4 years?
It's been
now?
4 years, four and a half years.
Since we did the program, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you're doing great now. You're writing and doing all kinds of things, right?
Yeah. No, life is good. I've remarried about 5 years ago to a beautiful woman, and she knows my whole history and loves me anyway. And we have a home. We have 3 kids. I have one of my own from a previous marriage and 2 from her previous marriage, but we've created a family, which I've always wanted. And it's a good life. It's a good life. We have everything we need. We can go places. I still work. In fact, in the last year, I've picked up options trading, and have been learning that, and have been doing it, and having a lot of fun with that. Yeah. I'm healthy from top to bottom. Had a hip replaced several years ago, and did not have to descend back into another endless addiction cycle. Because of that, it just wasn't a desire. And I know that really at the heart of this is God has removed the desire to use opiates. I mean, literally has removed it. And I really believe that's the crucial point in here. And I hadn't mentioned this yet, but it's so important that after you get clean or you get sober, that you continue to maintain a network of sober friends and support.
Absolutely. Right.
Whether that's 12-step programs or some of the other models, group models that are recovery based out there. Currently, our church is offering a Christian form of recovery that I attend, but I think it's so important that we continue to move within a sober group, a clean and sober group, and that be our primary people
Right.
for recovery.
And to be healthy, you need to be around healthy people.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody, and I know you've thought about this, and we've talked about it before, to someone who is caught in that cycle with Suboxone or opiates? That I tell them there's hope.
Yeah.
There is hope. There is a way to get your life back.
Yeah.
And to do it naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember you telling me that in the beginning. And what I would say, to you, if you're using and you're caught in that nightmare of addiction, of where am I going to get my next drug? How am I going to do it? Who do I have to lie to? What do I have to steal? Who do I have to hurt? What do I have to give up? That addiction that is the most important thing in your life, and you hate it at its core, there is hope. You can have the life that you deserve. You can have the life that God designed for you to have. And it's actually easier than you think. I don't want to do just a completely, blatant commercial, but see this man. Call this man. He has a solution that has helped many, many people, including myself, and I'm here to tell you, it works. It worked for me, changed my life completely around, and gave me what I needed. So you just don't have to do this anymore.
Right.
You don't have to be in that sickness anymore. And you know what I'm talking about. Right. There's nothing more lonely than addiction without a relationship to God.
Yeah.
I can't think of a worse spot.
Yeah. So there is hope, and you can get out of that cycle, can't you?
Yes.
You're living proof of it.
Yeah.
And all our patients have a similar thread there of being able to break through that the insanity of that circle or that demise or that lonely, isolated feeling.
Yeah.
And to be able to get their life back.
Yeah.
And to move forward and to be productive and to be happy and healthy and free and be functioning to their potential.
Yeah, and just living shame-free.
Yes.
Because I know with my addiction, there was so much shame involved in that. Mm-hmm. And it took me some time to work with that and come through that. And I know the shame of addiction, and you can be free of that too. Just imagine what your life would be like if you didn't have this addiction in your life. Right? What could you do? What could you accomplish? What dreams could you live that you have been denying yourself all these years when you're using? And it's better on this side.
Exactly. Why not get your life back, right?
Yeah, why not? Right? Because you're going to lose it. Yeah. You know that there's three endpoints. There's three conclusions to addiction, right? Jails, institutions, and death, especially with opiates. Death is close. And we have an opiate epidemic that is out of control. It's a wildfire that is burning through communities, burning through lives, and it just doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Well, I know we can't help everyone, but we can help those that come across our path, and we can clean that part off the table.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll say again, just see this man.
Thank you, Tim.
See Dr. Johns.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're doing great, and it's so glad to have you here today, and I'm so glad your family and all of y'all are doing so great, because the alternative, you wouldn't have been able to be here, would you?
No, I believe if I'd kept on that path, I'd have been dead.
Yeah.
By now, no question.
Well, thank God you're here, and I'm so glad to be your friend and glad to see you're doing so well.
Well, me too.
Thank
me
you.
too. Thank you for having me on.
You're
I
very
really
welcome.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Come back and visit us again.
Anytime.
All right.